Straight up, kids today, they're getting kind of soft. It's crazy, man. And, maybe that makes me sound like an old man yelling at them to keep off his lawn. Or rather, it definitely makes me sound like an old man yelling at them to keep off his lawn. But damn it, keep off my lawn. It's true, though, right? The rightists are 100% wrong when they, or they're not 100% wrong when they complain about, participation trophies and PC culture and this sense of entitlement in the younger generation that seems to seep into their pores like gross skin oils, giving them a bad case of acne. Somewhere along the line, we got zits and we got soft. It's a fact. Joking aside, like zits and all that, whatever, look around. We have safe spaces and sensitivity workshops and DEI departments and blah, blah, blah. It's everywhere. Coming from the corporate boardroom where it's all cooked up, and trickling down through society to you like a bad nightmare about Reaganomics or something. Everyone seems to be telling everyone else, you better not do what we've decided is the bad thing. And everyone seems to think they're, owed some allegiance to these things the ruling class and their corporations have decided are the bad things, or that someone owes them something, right? Whether that something is free stuff or control of your thoughts and opinions, that doesn't really matter. What matters is this need for control of something outside oneself that this thought tyranny targets. It comes out of the extreme alienation caused by reproletarianization of the middle classes. The fact that there is no longer a stable future that can be reasonably imagined by hundreds of millions of Americans. And this grinds my gears, man. It really does. But what really grinds my gears, even more than that, is that people, for some insane reason, associate all this liberal chauvinism with communism. I'll tell you what, Stalin is rolling in his grave right now, knowing people are using Soviet symbology to run HR department style classes on how to not do microaggressions or whatever, and putting Lenin's face on the same flags that Citigroup flies over their national offices. By the way, while we're on the subject, can seriously someone please tell me what a microaggression actually is? Like concretely? I've heard that word a million times, and I've been told probably even a million more times that I'm doing them by some weird, college kid who thinks they know everything, but I still have no idea whatsoever what they are. If someone wants to call in tonight and school me a little, please do so. I'll appreciate it. And it sounds like micro machines to me, right? Like those little toy cars from the 90s, but for aggression, I guess, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. They're not little toy cars. I had a million of those little cars, oh boy, for real. When I was little, I made tracks for them. And, you don't care about any of that. I was talking about this us getting soft thing, right? Look, the rightists are correct about the symptom, but wrong about the overall problem, as per usual, right? We begin this process of losing our edge a while ago, but we didn't lose just our edge. It's our sense of adulthood that's been eroded as the period of the middle classes went on, right? And our sense of dignity, our purpose, and our honor. Even the striving towards these things began to decay around the same time the middle classes began having children. I don't think that's a coincidence, And I want to say, even speaking of the words purpose, dignity, and honor these days are looked at as corny, right? Like I have to give you guys a qualifier and go, not to sound corny, but, which is ridiculous. But anyway, back to this, beginning with the middle classes having children. It's only natural that all of us want an easier life for our kids, right? And at first it was fine, not a big deal. My grandfather was a great man, but he was also kind of a jerk, I mean, he was fine with us grandkids, but he cracked the whip on his kids, when he was younger. He saw his job as a father, though, is not one of, giving his children everything they could ever want, but instead of preparing them for a life in the working class, making sure they knew who they were and could walk straight, tall, and proud because they'd be capable of getting by in life. He was like most men of the greatest generation, stoic and hard, what they used to call a man's man, right? Then you had my dad's generation, the boomers, and they still had some semblance of this, right? The way my grandfather raised his kids may have been harsh, but it was effective. Pops, that's what everyone in my neighborhood called my dad. He was possibly the best man I ever knew. And he had that same something most people had. He went to work every single day because it was his duty, right, to provide for his family. I don't think I ever once heard him complain, not once. Instead, he worked to make things better. Unlike my grandfather, though, he was the first to crack a joke about it, right? And there was more to him than that stoic form that typified the greatest generation, right? A lot of men and women of the boomer generation were just like that, I think Pops was pretty typical. And then comes Generation X. And in Gen X, we actually had things handed to us for a minute. Or, I mean, not me, really. A lot of Gen X did, though. This was the height of the results of the middle classes, right? This is the technological boom and the proliferation of education and the expansion of skilled labor right at the tipping point. Right. Sure, as the effects reach their pinnacle, they begin to decay, right? Our money was becoming fake. And all these problems were bubbling under the surface. But, Gen X was too busy listening to Nirvana and wearing flannel to care much about that. And after them come the millennials, right? And hipsterism and lifestyle politics and all that crap. This is when reproletarianization is also beginning, right? As this generation reaches adulthood. And they're finding out with a swiftness that this notion that they can be anything they want to be was a lie all along. Now, there were still some able to, make it into the middle classes during this period, but that's when it began collapsing, which leads us to the Zommers and the Zoomers and whatever the one after that's called, right? Where that bright future everyone got promised is no longer even reasonable to believe in, where they're still told that they can be anything they want to be by the institutions of the ruling elite. But in reality, it seems a lot more like a cruel joke as they watch their parents struggle to afford groceries, as they watch a genocide happening and our government not only funding it, but organizing it and reinforcing it, right? And those ruling elites start to seem crazier and crazier by the day, apparently marching us towards nuclear destruction with gleeful effing abandon, right? Laughing at our lack of ability to change anything as they do. So can we really blame them for feeling entitled? I mean, really, can we? If they need to feel some form of victory over something, with a silly participation trophy, can we blame them for that? I don't know. I don't think we can. It's not their fault, but it still is a problem we need to fix. We need to learn from the past in order to act in the present to ensure that the future belongs to the working class. And we need to teach our kids once again that we are the working class. And it's a hard road in our struggle against the elites. So we need to prepare them for that road. But it's the only road that'll ensure safety, security, and peace, not just for them, but for the entire world. And that's a tall order, right? I know. It's an ambitious project, but we can do it. I don't know. If we're talking about learning from history and what we see happening in history over and over again, we can take inspiration there, right? We watch the Russians do it. I mean, we watch the Chinese do it. We watch the Cubans do it, the South Africans do it, the Free Koreans do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's America's turn, though. The future is not bleak because of people becoming soft. Easy times, like the saying goes, create soft people, right? But we no longer have easy times. We are entering hard times. And it creates the necessity that we are here to answer. It creates the avenues of possibility that we must turn down the road of the class struggle, because the future does belong to the working class. We just got to make it happen. What's up, everybody? I'm Noah Krachivik, and welcome to another amazingly creatively named Noah's Show. With me, as always, is the super producer Daniel Gutierrez. What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling
Awesome.
great. Yeah. We had such a great convention. Like
no kidding.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to apologize to everybody that we weren't here on Monday. I know we do this show every Monday without fail, but frankly, with all the work that we went through for the convention and the community service action we had afterwards, we were all just exhausted. And I'll take the blame. I called Daniel and I was like, we're not going to be able to do the show. Sorry, brother. But I mean, I don't know. What did you? Apologies aside, what did you think of the convention, Daniel?
It was just, it's, I don't want to get emotional, but it was pretty beautiful. It was just, historic, amazing people. Just, it came together really beautifully. Just the party platform is epic. It's so amazing. No other party comes close. And it was just amazing to meet so many people in person.
Yep.
And realize that you're not alone. Like there's a lot of really amazing comrades that are, wow, really, 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 really super exciting. And just, they're all about it. I couldn't be more excited about the future, to be honest.
Yeah, it was really inspiring for me. I don't know. It's like, well, one, I don't know what other parties you're talking about. There's only one Communist Party. So there's that. But seriously, though, look, one of the things that strikes me is I've been around the left for a while, right? And I've been community organizing my whole life. I mean, I'm still super active in my neighborhood. But one of the things that always strikes me whenever we talk to a lot of the young cadre, especially, is just the regular people who are sort of forced into action to defend their communities and their families, right? It's not like these leftist groups where it's all these social outcasts complaining about society. Instead, it's just regular people talking about how we're going to, improve this place, make it better. And I think that's amazing. And it's something that before the party got together, I had never seen before, So there's that. There's I met so many people and had so many brilliant ideas told to me that I can't even begin to listen. We'd be here all night. But I do want to mention real quick. I met this really, really, really smart young man named Samuel, right? And he was telling me how the party sort of has inspired him to go back to school, to get closer to his family and all this other really cool stuff. And he really wants to get into investigative journalism, right? Which is fantastic. We need people like that, right? Willing to do what it takes to get the truth to people. And while we were at the convention, unfortunately, his mom had a heart attack and he was stuck there in Illinois with us, right? Unable to go home. Like, you can't just like that, unless you're rich, go leave. He had to wait for his flight. And so I just wanted to say that we're with you, Samuel. And I heard that his mom passed away after that, which is tragic. So I just want to say to him that we're with you and the party's got your back, brother. Whatever you need, Just ask. But I don't want to leave it on a down note. Believe me, I really wanted to make sure I mentioned that because it's important that I think that we have each other's backs, that we look at each other and depend on each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, big part of being a communist for me is like lifting each other up.
Mhm.
Um, it's supporting each other, it's looking out for each other, it's helping each other improve, providing constructive feedback, criticism, so that everybody can become a better member of their community and a better patriot. So really sorry to hear that about Sam. But yeah,
Oh, you said
definitely.
patriot. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm really, like I said, I was really moved, and I mean, just the relationships that we built and the connections that we made, and I mean, what we're working towards and what we're building towards is gonna be really huge.
Yeah, I think
And I can
so.
see that already.
I really think you're right, brother. I don't want to like, sit here and tell each other good job, right?
I know, right?
But I really thought was cool was we ratified our constitution at the convention, right? And we passed the party program. Now, with stuff like this, we put it up for a vote, and if anyone had any issues, there's a space for them to say nay, and then we talk about it and we do whatever to fix it. Right? There was not a single nay on anything. The both the Constitution and the program passed unanimously. Now that says something about the time and care that went into writing these things and analyzing society in order to form them, right? To have these documents meet the needs of the day. And it says something about the correct nature of a Marxist analysis that everybody can arrive at these conclusions, right? I thought that was fantastic. What about you?
Yeah, and it's not that there isn't like internal debate
Right. Oh, believe
or
me, there was. I
or
fell asleep during a few. They lasted so long.
yeah, but I think overall the essence of the platform is correct, and that's really what's important.
Yeah, I do too. It's future thinking, right? A lot of the time, I think people get, this used to be me, so I'm kind of self criticizing here, but people get larpy about it, right? They're like, well, the Bolsheviks had this, and this in their program. It's like, well, that's fine, but when the Bolsheviks were active, the printing press was like a new thing, right? We got to update and we got to stay current. That's what Marxism is all about, understanding development itself, right? So, like, yes, I admire the Bolsheviks, but we can't just copy and paste what they did. Like everything about the blockchain technology and everything in our program really is designed to sort of understand capital and how it's transformed in our era to take into account things like the American people becoming a people and fighting for their sovereignty, to take into account the divorce of value and price from each other, right? The cause of reproletarianization and the death of the middle classes. There's a reason that the first thing we talked about was the elimination of all debts, right? It's because of that. I don't know what I'm interested in what you think of that sort of way we went about writing it.
Um, no, I thought the platform was really inspiring. Um, I think I've heard some people say like, oh, this is there that you didn't account for this whatever identity or this particular experience in this particular way, and that's not really the point of the party platform. I think the point of the party platform is to really to provide the more like general abstract
Mhm.
version of that of that particular contradiction that we need to resolve. And then of course um, we take a more decentralized approach to administration. So in terms of how that manifests in a particular locality, that's a different question, and that's up to that particular locality to resolve that particular contradiction. So I thought it was of all the things that we put out there, the platform is one of the strongest things that we have in terms of our party. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. This guy said is mentioning some anti-communists that were blown away by the word class not being in our platform, and it brings up a good point. Like, obviously, this guy's saying this jokingly, but there are anti-communist, like the sort of anti-communist that calls himself a communist, right? Like whining about this all over social media, and it drives me crazy because these metaphysical sort of anti-dialecticians, they are so focused on saying the right magic word, right? On using the code words correctly, that they completely miss the entire content. They sort of focus on form to the point that it empties that form of all content, right? So it's just an empty form. If we would have typed the word class, he would have been like, yes, right? And it's funny because if you look at the program that's within the Communist Manifesto, the 10-point plan, right? It doesn't have the word class in it either, because Marx and Engels also weren't focused on empty form, right? They were focused on the content and meeting the needs of the day like we are. Not that we're, Marx and Engels, but we try our best to learn from them. Jenny Lynn says it's like casting a spell or something. This is why I was calling them wizards for so long. And everybody told me to shut up with the wizard jokes. So I shut up with the wizard jokes.
Yeah, well, wizards are really annoying. Witches too. You got to look out for them, I guess.
For real, they're scary. You never know what's underneath those giant hats, right? I should probably mention that this is why we need swords, because everyone knows that wizards get slayed with swords, right?
Dragons too.
I don't know. Welcome to the show, everybody. We'll see you right after this.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said: you look like a Russian, you look like a red, and if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm still Noah. Daniel's off doing his job, doing the producing stuff. We're gonna get started right here in a minute. I want to answer because I always get this question.
Sorry, I missed that last part.
The song is
What?
called "The High Sheriff of Hazard," and the version we have on our intro is a cover version that we will make available as its own video on YouTube as soon as our production team gets to it. But as you can imagine, they are massively overworked, so we don't like to be demanding of them. Yeah, especially now, right after the convention, there's just so much stuff to do, and we are all just busy all day, all night. And sorry, I had my coffee delivered. My wife is a fantastic wife, and it does favors for me once in a while when I beg her to. Um, anyway, we're gonna get started here in a minute, but I want to talk before we do about it because it was in the chat about identity politics, right? This argument has been going on for decades, right? It's one of the arguments that destroyed the last period of history's left, honestly. Like um, the hyper individualism of modern middle class leftism, right? And the way it frames identity politics is the same as all politics. All politics, and you can quote me on this, all politics are class politics. It just depends on what class is doing it, right? So in the modern era, the sort of wokeism is very much a middle class politics that's taught to people in bourgeois institutions. We can trace this back to its very beginning, right? And what forces were sort of proliferating this form of politics within America. And a friend of the Institute, we've interviewed him in the past, Christian Parenti, the son of the legendary Michael Parenti, obviously, wrote a brilliant, brilliant paper on this once that was so inspiring for me personally, called The First Privilege Walk. And he traces one of these, DEI style workshop events called the Privilege Walk, where what they do is they separate regular people by identity marker based on what they decide is a privilege, right? And it teaches them to view each other as separate and different. Now, this is precisely opposite of how Marxism does, right? Thank you, Golden Perenni. I will try to check my privilege in the future. I'm not sure if this is a microaggression I'm doing, but if it is, sorry. I don't know. I'm not sorry. I'm joking. Where was I? The first privilege walk, right? So it was cooked up in a corporate boardroom, by the way, by the wife of Herbert Marcuse, which I'm not sure if you guys know the name. He was an anti-communist, one of the fake left that worked with the Frankfurt School, right? The guys that Jordan Peterson will lie to you and tell you are the evil Marxists, right? And it's all of it does is draws separation lines within humanity, within society where they don't actually exist. Marxism, on the other hand, views all forms of politics as class politics, and all forms of struggle as class struggle. Right? They're different historically determined forms of the universal class struggle. Right? So, in American history, the Black Freedom Movement, this is a primary form the class struggle has taken on. Not even just throughout the majority of our history, but at our most revolutionary moments. The end of the Civil War, right? Our second revolution. And then our third revolution, which is the political revolution that we call the Civil Rights Movement. Anyway, I just wanted to get to that. We're going to dive right into your calls. So, who do we got first, Daniel? Daniel.
Hey, Noah, we've got Pavel from Austria.
Pavel from
Yes.
Austria. Awesome. Return caller. What's up, Pavel? How you doing tonight?
Hi, I'm doing fine. Do you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. What do you got for us tonight, brother?
Yeah, I have two questions, but I think I'll first start with the first one because it's a practical one.
Okay.
I want to establish a practical routine for myself in regards to learning Marxist and Leninist literature.
Okay.
But I'm usually after a 9-hour workday, I'm too tired after work to do so. So how do you do it, Noah, usually? I mean, you work as a carpenter, so you stand up very early in the morning. If you're reading, when are you doing it usually, and how did you establish a routine for it?
Well, that's a good question. I'm actually the guy to ask because I'm exhausted after work. Plus, I have a teenager, I have a wife, I have a sick mother. I have a lot going on. It took me a while to start my routine. But I just started waking up really, really early when my house is still quiet. Right? You might not have a teenager, but if you do, you will understand that you just don't have a quiet house if they're awake, right? So I wake up at 4 in the morning. The first thing I do is I check my messages from the party, and then I begin studying. Right now, for instance, I am going through here. Hold on. This book here, Capital in the 21st Century by Thomas Piketty. Now, this guy's a moronic liberal, but it has so much data and so much useful data for my project. So I do at least an hour of reading, right? And I do my note taking and that kind of stuff. After that, I do my work. Or party work. There's a million little things that I need for a million little projects, etc. Right? And I do my writing. So right now, I'm finishing editing a paper for the First Right America, which is actually very much behind schedule right now, in defense of 1776. So the way I got to this, though, isn't I just decided one day to do it. I gave myself sort of, I did it gradually, right? And the way that you get used to reading all the time is, I mean, it sounds weird to say it, but it's by reading all the time, right? Like I read obsessively now, and I never used to. Like I'll have a copy of a book just in my back pocket as I'm walking around, and I'm in line at the grocery store, and I'll just read Lenin for a few minutes. I'm walking around the block, and I'm reading with my nose in a book as I do. So when it's for me, it's a way to keep my brain occupied and productive. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, it helps a little bit. I mean, I usually wake up in the morning at 4:30, so I can have a coffee, have a breakfast, and relax a little bit before work. So it could be something also which I could copy shamelessly in this case before I go to work, because at the evening I don't have a brain to let's say read Marx or Lenin or Stalin for that matter.
I am 100% with you on that, brother. It's I want to turn my brain off after work. That's what I want to do. Like what I want.
Yeah, I want to debrain after work.
Precisely.
I want to debrain after work.
Exactly. It's mush anyway. And like most of what I do at work is math. So I have like equations in my head while I'm doing manual labor all day, right? Like I have to remember the sizes of joists, and you don't care about any of that stuff. But yeah, I think just like little by little start reading more just in your free time. And begin by reading while you're eating your breakfast. That really, really helps. It starts to like add it into the muscle memory you already have, right?
Sounds good. Yeah. And if you have time for a second question, would be great. Otherwise, you can skip to the next caller.
Let's do it. We'll be quick if we need to, but I'm here for it, and you're a regular caller, and we love you here, so let's do it, brother.
Oh, much appreciated. That so much appreciation is shown for some weirdo from Austria.
Well, we got to be quick with it. Daniel's literally telling me right now that we have a lot of calls. So let's be quick.
Yeah. Okay. Let's make it quick. General question. So, if we look at West Asia or the Middle East, if we call it from a, let's say, American or European perspective,
Mhm.
which I don't like, I mean, if the US basically fucks up the fucks up and starts bombing Iran as a little bitch for Israel, I mean, we are in really a crappy situation economic-wise because whole supply chains will collapse.
Oh,
You
yeah.
will have nothing in the shelves. So I actually don't know how to prepare for it, and people are too moronic to understand that it's not just in West Asia, that it would be in their own self-interest to basically rise up against the shit the EU and the US are doing, and they don't get it. They really don't.
Yeah.
I'm terrified out of my mind, and I have also at the same time also to worry for the family in Gaza, where I am grateful for each day when they are writing me a message. How are you?
I agree completely, brother. It's a really, really scary time, right? This one can like take like a long answer. So a truncated version of that is that we don't know what our ruling class is capable of. They've nuked people in the past, and they are absolutely okay with mass murder and letting our people suffer, as we see. So we need to take it upon ourselves, you and your country, us and ours, to unite as working people. And that's what we're trying to do with the party. Thank you so much for your call, Pablo. I'm sure I'll talk to you again in the near future. It's always a pleasure, brother.
Yeah, I mean, a longer call would be much appreciated, but there are other people in there. So
Yes. Well,
much
maybe let's hold this one for next week and we'll get into the details.
much love to you and Carlos and everyone else in the party. I have so much respect for you. Not so much like the brain dead liberals I'm surrounded with.
Thank you. That means a lot to us, brother. Thank you so much. All right. We're going to roll through since we got a lot of them. Let's go, Daniel. Who's next?
Hey, we've got Neurologist to tap.
My man.
ACP, Ohio.
One of these days I'm going to be able to pronounce that, but it's not today. So, what's up, brother? What do you got for us tonight?
Well, what happens when you give a cat a lemon?
You get a sourpuss.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
I
what
got
happens
one.
when
I
an
got
ill-tempered
one.
witch has the broom
I was
malfunction?
celebrating all over what you said. What did you say?
So what happens when an ill-tempered witch loses control of her broom?
Oh God, terror. I don't know what.
Flies off the handle.
This man. All right. What do you got for us tonight for real?
All right, this is probably a more speculative question, but say we have a scenario where we fuse the Constitution with Marxist-Leninist standard organization.
Mm-hmm.
Might there be a possible convergence between the vanguard party and say the president and the cabinet?
Can you repeat that? You faded out.
Sure. So might there be, in a speculative scenario, might there be a convergence between the structures of a vanguard party in Marxism Leninism and say the president and the cabinet under the Constitution?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And Marx and Engels recognized this, right? And they talked about Engels in his Conditions of the Working Class in England. If you look at the foreword in the first section, he actually talks about like how this process is probably the way the American class struggle is going to have to go, and that the American communists should be aligning with those forces that can show the bourgeoisie as not fulfilling that constitution, which is why we talk about things like the Bill of Rights, right? the ruling class already ignores this constitution that is supposed to be our, like, sacred social contract. So it's up to us to sort of make sure people know that and say that this is what we want. We just want what's right. And I think that, though, like, theoretically, that could easily come about.
Well, to build on that, what about the idea of a constitutional convention where we preserve the Bill of Rights, maybe expand it, and try to build something new? What might that look like in your mind?
Honestly, like, outside of the theoretical, this could happen. What I think is more likely to happen is that the institutions of the ruling class over the next couple of decades, maybe less than 2 decades, are going to continue losing legitimacy in the eyes of the people. We're going to continue losing faith in government to the point that there's going to be some sort of collapse of the legitimacy of the state. And it's going to, I don't know, like, the amount of deterioration, who knows, right? But ending that will have to be a constitutional convention or Congress of some sort, right? A constitutional emergency where we address the issues of the Constitution and what got us here. Because really, I mean, the Constitution has been sort of manipulated and politicized, and the form that's taken has been this empty liberal formalism, right? Where you have these judges appointed for life by presidents who interpret and reinterpret the Constitution in a politicized manner. And that's a huge, huge problem. So things like that will have to get addressed. And the people addressing that are going to be the people that the American people put their faith in, right? So the Communist Party seeks to become one of these organizations. And I really think we have the capacity to do that. When I was at I'm sorry to ramble at you, but real quick, when I was at the convention and you were there with me, I saw we spoke there for a while. And I looked out at that crowd, right? And waiting for the chanting to die down. All I could see was possibilities. That these people are ready, that the conditions have molded them into this, and that with the right preparation, something like that is fully within our reach. What do you think?
I would largely agree with that. The form that would take, of course, is speculation. But
Right.
as someone who enjoys sci-fi, it's always fun to do some world building and an ideation. So before I go, I have a horrible pun for you.
Let's do it. One pun and then we'll move.
What's a monster's favorite drink?
Oh, a monster's, is it the Monster energy drink?
It's Ghoul-Aid.
Get out of here. Get him out of here. He knows me way, way, way too well, by the way. Anyway, as to your question, Daniel, I'm not sure. I already dealt with that. But who do we have next? If you're talking to me, Daniel, remember that you're muted and that the people can't see you. So basically, this is like dead air.
Right. My bad. Hey, we've got Vulgar Marks. Vulgar Marks one.
Vulgar Marks?
Vulgar Marks.
Vulgar Marks. All right. I like Marks, and not a big fan of vulgarity, but let's do it. What's up, Vulgar Marks?
Okay, so we had a conversation earlier. I have a laundry list of questions about policy, but Daniel got me to agree to limit to one only.
Okay. Hold on. Can you move your mic like maybe a little closer to your face? I can barely hear you, brother.
Sorry, it's more like moving my laptop closer to my face.
Perfect. That's great.
Okay,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
no trouble. So I am a very firm believer in hard data. We must base what we are doing on current economic conditions.
I couldn't agree more. Oh, are
The
you cutting
problem
out?
is no, don't worry about it.
Okay,
The
okay.
problem is if you dig into the data, this is on the Bureau of Economic Analysis, or if you prefer, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Right now in the United States, if you add together all the farmers, all the factory workers, all the warehouse workers, all the construction workers, all utilities, and all truck drivers, you get a grand total of 30 million jobs. That's it.
Mhm.
30 million. In addition, if you start digging into waste statistics, we throw over a quarter of everything we produce in the garbage unsold. Now, as part of the platform, you have said that you are going to guarantee a productive job to the 150 million working age Americans.
Mhm.
Yet at present, we could barely manage, assuming we didn't just toss things in the garbage straight from the factory, barely 20 million productive jobs. Do you have a plan to bridge that gap? Is
Yeah.
what I'm asking.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And that's a great question. So I think you're right. And I think the reason that we only have roughly 30 million Americans left, and this is at the very topmost in the proletariat, is because of the changing form of capital over the course of the 20th century, right? The sort of our economy, like the actual value being added into it, just fell out as financialization continued, and that's why you'll see like the service sector being the most prevalent, right? And we plan to reindustrialize the nation, number one, right? We plan to shorten working hours, the working day, and the work week, number two. We plan massive infrastructure projects, number three. So it's like there's a lot of interconnected particular parts of this, right? That there's experts in fields of city planning that go into what you need for the amount of people to build a road, for instance, right? Or to fix a bridge, stuff like that. So while I agree with your estimate, it's a very scary and a very ambitious and daunting task. But our goal is even more ambitious than that, because this, brother, is the process of communism, right? This isn't just we need to bring production back. This is we need to bring production back, but in a socialist manner, right? In a way that benefits the whole people rather than, this financial scamming enterprise or that insurance company or whatever. So there's a million little working pieces that go into it. But at the end of the day, it's based in Marxist analysis. And what we have to remember is that as we change the conditions, we are creating new conditions that change what we're doing. And the cause and effect relationship goes back and forth. It's not just that cause becomes effect. It's that next effect becomes the next cause. So as we begin building, say, bridges, right? We are also at the same time bringing more productive workers in, starting more companies in this field, and creating more jobs in those industries. So as we do this, the number of those go up organically. Does that make sense?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay, great. My producer's telling me we got time for one more from you if you want to do another one.
Actually, sideways. Do you have a pen and pencil handy or a piece of paper?
I literally always have a pen in my hand.
Write this down, and when you have time, look it up.
Okay.
Microplastics, human reproduction.
Oh, dude, do not get me started on microplastics. I fell down a
Awesome.
rabbit hole on these things when the WHO was telling us all to wear masks and then telling us not to wear masks, and then telling us to wear masks again, right? The amount of microplastics that we breathe in, even just from those masks, is absolutely toxic, and it's terrifying. So yes, I've looked into those before. Is this where you were going with it, or is it some other
No, I was
horrible
going with
thing?
water supply.
Go
I
ahead.
was going with water supply. It's gotten into it's going up into rainwater now. So it's
Oof.
literally contaminating every water source on the planet.
That is terrifying, man. For real, seriously terrifying. And yeah,
Yeah,
I'll agree
and the problem
all
is,
day on those.
okay, so I didn't see it in the platform, and that's something like it's not common knowledge now, but when it becomes common knowledge, I would strongly advise we be ahead of it. Like we have a policy in place in relation to that.
Mhm.
So when someone goes, who's talking about this? Why did I just hearing about this? They search it and hey, look, here's the ACP. We have a hard policy on it.
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing with with a party program, right? It doesn't have each and every thing that a government will cover, right? Like when the American Communist Party is in power, this isn't every single thing we're going to do, right? Like the Communist Party of China, for instance, right? They have this really cool sort of set it within their theory called the ecological civilization. Now, this is new, right? And it's not sort of in their official constitution or anything like that because it comes along at a certain time for a certain reason. So, um, I mean, we take a lot of inspiration from the Chinese. Obviously, they got to be doing something right to, have eliminated more poverty than any other force in all of human history, after all. And I've been reading up on the ecological civilization idea, which is, again, like everything in a communist party based in Marxist analysis. So the back and forth relationship between the people and the environment that they're within has to promote a new stage that can continue on, right? So there's this famous quote from Xi where he says that we will never again um, chase growth in expense of the environment, but we will never, at the I forget what he said exactly now. I feel like an idiot, but he also says the reverse is also true, right? At the same time, we cannot stop growing because of the environment. There is a way to do it harmoniously. And that's absolutely the road that the American Communist Party would take. But I would also point you to point 4 of the program, as our producer Daniel just reminded me, which is that we stand for an immediate moratorium on the use of GMOs and harmful pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides in agriculture, pending comprehensive public investigation by a People's Health Commission, which is to be outside of the influence of corporate monopolies. The Communist Party stands for severe personal penalties for introducing harmful substances into the food and water supply. So it's like a program is something general like this, right? The actual practical steps we take are in service of fulfilling this program, if that makes sense.
Sort of. I prefer programs slightly more specific, but I can understand why at the start you're being more general.
I missed all of that, brother. I'm sorry.
I view programs as something, particularly in our case, that have to be very specific. There's going to be a lot of people who are very nervous about a communist party in the United States. So I view being specific as possible to be a benefit to allay any concerns that we're trying to hide anything. But I can understand if we haven't quite got there yet.
Yeah, well, you know what? There's these sort of debates happen within the party, believe it or not. There's nothing that we arrived at sort of just haphazardly. It's always after an entire discussion on it has been exhausted. and then a course of action is arrived at. The executive board doesn't work through votes. We work through consensus. So it's up to, if one of us has an idea, it's up to them to convince the rest of us that it's the best idea in that case. As the Communist Party, we don't expect anyone in America to just take our word for it, right? That would be silly. After the decades and decades of anti-communist lies that we're all subjected to, even people who think they're communists, a lot of the time believe a lot of those lies, right? So we mean not to sort of convince people through, telling them and basically begging them to trust us, but we mean to convince them of our intentions in action through our deeds. This is why we began with a massive nationwide community service program, right? This is why we've so far raised about 10 grand for hurricane relief, and every single dime is going directly to people affected by the hurricane. Our North Carolina chapter, and shout out to Bree, the chapter executive in North Carolina, who recently actually won the Hero of the Party award at our convention. She's been spearheading this effort and was even able to get a Starlink for a local fire department so they could save people that have been trapped in the hurricane. Because we could say this, we could say that, we could be vague, we could be specific, and it won't matter. What matters is results. And we are focused on results, my friend. That's the orientation of the party.
Okay, well, that's all I had to
Oh,
say
dude,
for the time being.
I really hate to cut you off, brother, but like every single time you start talking, it's cutting in and out. So I'm gonna have to tell you what, give us a call next week, and hopefully we won't have this problem, because these were great questions, and I'm looking forward to more questions. You said you had a bunch, so yeah, let's keep
I will
rolling
come
along,
back next
Daniel.
week.
Oh, you're not cutting out. Okay, one more quick one. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I'm going to head out and leave you to it, man. You have a great week.
Great. Thank you, brother. We'll see you next week. All right. I liked that one. That was good. I like when people sort of they seem like they have an issue, right, with something we're doing, but when they approach it like this guy did, it's amazing, because we can actually come to a new understanding together. When they approach it like these bozos on Twitter or whatever, nothing happens. All you do is get division of people. And that ain't no good. What do we need more division for? We're divided enough already. Before we go on, we got a super chat. Thank you so much in the 6 for the 28 bucks. Man, that's awesome. He says, I'm an architect weighing job options. A, corporate with monetary stability, family time, but profit-driven projects. B, joining a challenging small firm designing schools and community centers with less community time in Canada. And asking for a priority, I think. That's a really, that's a tough question, brother. I think that, look, we all have different needs in life. We all have different wants, different conditions create who we are. I think that if you seriously ask yourself, which way am I leaning? That's going to be the one that makes you happiest. And that's what you should do. We all have to survive in this world. For me, I personally am willing to go with less money if it means I can do something important, right? I mean, right now, I'm with you guys rather than working overtime. I mean, overtime is where the money's at in my industry, right? But I'm with you because I consider it important. So that's just me, though. If you think that the extra time with your family, for example, with the corporate job would make you happier, do that, brother. Ain't nobody gonna judge you for it. And everyone contributes to the class struggle in different ways, right? There is always a need for money, for example, right? And if you're making more money, that's more money you can put towards the cause. So there's always an option to turn what you're doing into something productive for communism? That's all. That was a great question, though, man. We got some good questions today. Excuse me. Thank you, Default. All right, we're gonna roll along though, because we're already over the hour mark. Who do we got next, Daniel?
We've got Ziploc.
Ziploc, like the sandwich baggies?
Not quite.
Oh, well,
Ziploc.
thick lops.
We'll just move on. Ziploc, how are you doing today?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you, Noah?
I'm good, brother. How are you? How are you? Oh, you just said you were doing well. I probably shouldn't make
Yeah,
you
no
repeat
worries.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what do
Yeah,
you
should
got
I
for us
just
tonight?
yeah, I've got I guess 2 primary questions I'll start with, and we can see how things go from there.
Sure.
The topic I want to approach with like attentiveness, an acuteness of awareness of kind of how discourse around it has been inflammatory, and I want to avoid any of that inflammatory, bad faith stuff like that kind of things going on.
Cool.
And I'll try to be concise, but if you want me to elaborate on anything, feel free.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
that's excellent intro. Do it up, brother.
Yeah. So the first question I have, I guess would relate to wanting to ask about at least either your perspective or maybe if the ACP has an already established perspective about maybe assuaging concerns or otherwise that individuals who identify with LGBT issues or identity might have with regards to past inflammatory discourse, remarks, and so on by those associated with the ACP. I know, for example, that the ACP has made it clear that discrimination based on like private matters or that go against the dignity of party members, as well as, for example, Haas having mentioned that attacks against LGBT individuals are not condoned. But I want to get, an idea of how you might, in particular, being aware of, for example, the optics that have existed. How would you maybe approach an LGBT individual who might have those concerns? How would you assuage those concerns that they have with the ACP?
Good question. So I want to go at it from 2 ways for you, but the first is this hypothetical gay or bi or whoever individual, right? Are they working class?
If you're asking me, like, for
Yeah.
a hypothetical
Like,
person,
are the one that you said, like, how would I approach this individual?
yeah, well, I'm saying,
are
like,
they in the working class?
individuals in general. I guess I would phrase it in terms of someone who might tentatively be interested in the ACP. Maybe they are or aren't working class. Maybe they identify or they associate themselves with communism or not. I'm asking, I guess, in a very broad sense. And apologies if it's too broad, but
No, that's
feel free.
okay. Like, so, I like to put things into more concrete terms. So, like, if we're thinking of this individual, right? This individual has to have a history to them. They otherwise they're not a person, right? They're just an idea, and we can do better than that. I think that, look, if this, if they associate themselves with communism, I find that 90% of the people who tell me they're communists have no idea what communism actually is. So that doesn't mean a lot to me. What means a lot to me is whether they're part of the proletariat or reproletariat. If so, they are my brother or sister, and we will do what we can to get them active and ready to fight the ruling class with us. We don't care who they want to sleep with, who they're attracted to, how they choose to express themselves, any of that. What matters to us is whether they're ready to fight the ruling class with us or not. If they're from the middle class, I would be a little more tentative because middle class people, I mean, what's left of them, right? They tend to vacillate. They tend to preach at you. They tend to put their own personal concerns above the class struggle. And the Communist Party demands a selflessness from our membership that a lot of middle class people just aren't capable of giving us, right? And this isn't just the rank and file, the cadre. It's us in the leadership as well. Now, regarding off-color jokes, some people find offensive, stuff like that. Nobody's perfect. People, all go through their own process. But in the party and as the party, we have a zero tolerance policy for discrimination of any sort. And what we try to do is stop dividing people and singling them out. Like, hey, you're the gay one, or hey, you're the brown one, or whatever it is, right? We want everybody to be one, proletarian or reproletarian, and two, a communist. After that, it's just the various forms the individuals take, right? So I hope that can answer your question.
Yeah, that was a fantastic answer. And do we have time for the second kind of question I wanted to get to?
Yeah, why not? Just go ahead. I'm having fun with this one.
Yeah. The second question I had is more on the topic, kind of tangentially related, but of the idea of the quote LGBT movement or quote LGBT community, and the criticism of whether or not that community or movement is historically constituted, and what that in particular means. So just for the specific reference I'm coming from, to contextualize, I've referred back to like previous discussions and debates that Haas has had with regards to, for example, in contrast to an example like the Black American community, which has a method which it materially reproduces itself, that it has been historically constituted. Haas mentioned it proved a threat to the State Department and how it has formed and created its own, like, for lack of a better term, sense of self. I guess, how does one approach a Marxist and materialist analysis of being able to identify what is and isn't a community? And I guess from like for lack of a better term, empathetic and understanding perspective, how do you identify and recognize the LGBT community as it currently exists within like the bourgeois liberal form as being inauthentic, or even having the capacity to form a material community? Could you elaborate on those kind of topics?
So to me, these are two different questions. But let's go from the very basics, right? How does Marxism teach us that social reproduction happens, right? It teaches us that social reproduction is a material production. It comes about and takes shape through the form we make the things we need to survive: our clothing, our food, our shelter, etc. Right? In the bourgeois epoch, this is when everything gets commodified, right? And this is when our labor starts to be alienated away from ourselves. Now, there's something to be said about the alienation of individuals during this time period as the middle classes are created and financialization begins to occur, because even the way we go about reproducing society becomes more and more abstract. And we start seeing not just these sort of independently constructed communities, like we could say the LGBT community, for example, right? Which is different than the Black community or the Latino community or whatever, right? We see other forms of alienated individuals coming together to form something to give them what they're not getting because of that alienation, right? We see this is not to compare the two groups, but we see gangs become like families because people don't have a family life. That kind of stuff. What I'm trying to get at is that people always need to reproduce what they're missing in social reproduction. Now, as this goes on into the 2020s and we get to the revolutionary character of our epoch, we see that the form it currently takes can no longer continue moving forward, right? So that even these communities begin to break down. Like you see, like even within these leftist groups and movements, right? They're always bickering and fighting each other. Why? Because they're all missing that something, right? And this is where the Marxist-Leninist analysis of what creates that the real material reproduction of society comes in, right? Where we seem to be stuck in this limbo for the reproletariat. And I think that is what gives rise to these things. Not to say that people aren't, what people feel isn't real. It's just not the same as a material basis for social reproduction. I know that was a little rambly, but can you kind of pick my point out of that?
Kind of, but I feel like I don't know if that answers the maybe a more fundamental question I had of I guess understanding, at least in the context that I'm trying to understand, what differentiates a historically constituted community versus like what has, and not to say that you speak for him, but
Right, right, right.
just for the point of reference.
I get what you're saying. So here's the thing about the Communist Party. I'm not Haas, right? Haas is what we call a heterodox Marxist. I'm more of an orthodox Marxist, right? My sort of thinking is grounded in creative Marxism and the dialectics of abstract and concrete. So believe it or not, Haas and I don't always come from the same position. So unfortunately, I'd have to, I'm not sure exactly what conversation you're referring to. Like I know Haas, he's a great guy and a friend, but I don't know his exact thinking on this. So it's hard for me to really be able to explain it. So I can try to explain from my perspective and what it's going to take to move forward and why, say, the necessity of moving forward for the old gay movement in the 80s, right? With leaders like Harvey Milk actually created real change, and the LGBT movement of today seems to not. That's something we could cover, which I think is really interesting. But I can't really speak for Haas, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's very fair. I totally understand that. So I kind of that's mainly asking to also partly understand if there was like more of a consensus on that analytical point or that or otherwise.
It's
I don't know if there's time for other short questions or not. If not, I'm totally fine.
I'm down, yeah. But let me say just one of the things that we've based the Communist Party on is our outlook on the necessity of a revolutionary movement of the people in the 2020s, right? And in doing this, we intend to combat all of the problems that plagued the last period of history's left. And one of those is this need all of the different groups seem to have to force everyone to think exactly what they do, right? So the like Carlos and I align on almost everything. But that's not necessarily the case with Haas and some other people. And that's good. That's the type of thing we like, because when we disagree, that's when it gets interesting, right? That's when we can start to figure out well, what's the actual problem here? And how can we come together and produce an answer that gets results? The entire framing of the Communist Party is based around getting results. And so when we have people coming from different directions, it opens up different avenues of possibility, right? Different ways of seeing the problem that maybe Haas sees something I didn't see. Maybe Carlos sees something Haas didn't see, etc., and on, right? So I just wanted to sort of reiterate that this is a Communist Party for the 21st century. And because of that, it must have all kinds of ranges of discussion within it.
That's very fair. I appreciate that, and that's one thing that I really respect about the ACP and how it approaches things. So, thank you there.
Well, thank you. I guess appreciate it. Let's go to a little question. Let's do it.
Yeah, I guess the small question, which I'll keep it as concise as possible. It's still going to be related to this broader topic, is that some people have attacked the ACP, claiming it to be, quote, tailist when it comes to, I guess, either statements or how it reaches out to working class people in different areas and so on. And I guess specifically a lot of people think that in the context of the Red Book, Chapter 11, where Mao mentions that's the falling below the, quote, political consciousness of the masses. And I guess specifically here, I want to isolate what does political consciousness mean in contrast to, say, class consciousness, or how some other in some other contexts we see the term trade union consciousness. How do you understand those kinds of things? And does Mao mean class consciousness, or is political consciousness a more specific or different idea?
It's a really good question. In regards to the first part, honestly, a lot of these people, one, a lot of them are fake. So you got to remember that. Two, a lot of people just kind of go along with this, not really understanding what it means. And so they'll say words like tailism without understanding what tailism actually is.
Right, or like I've heard people say reactionary, where it seems to mean illiberal and not reactionary.
Precisely, yeah. The use of the word social in front of things when they mean in regards to culture, that's a pet peeve of mine, right? Because in Marxism, traditionally, you say the word social in regards to the entirety of society. So when they say a social reactionary, they're talking about someone who they believe is reactionary, quote unquote, reactionary in regards to culture, but we would just say reactionary because it means the whole of society. Regardless, when Mao talks about a political consciousness, he's talking about at the moment the level of sort of where people are at and how they view politics as such, right? And so when he talks about meeting the people where they're at and going to reactionary workers and bringing them up, this is precisely what we seek to do. And you know, the like anti-communists and quote unquote leftists who think they're communists but aren't, they believe this is tailism because they are so used to fighting the right rather than the ruling class that anyone outside of their sort of leftist dogmas becomes the enemy.
Right, they kind of I was going to say they kind of seem to approach things only on the ideological level, not material level.
100%, yes. And they do it in a way where, I mean, don't get me wrong, they think they're doing something good, right? They do, which is why it's so hard to get through to them often. But what they end up doing is, if you haven't read Carlos's book on this, by the way, it's called The Purity Fetish and the Crisis of Western Marxism. I highly recommend it. But they create smaller and smaller groups, right? Because their whole thinking is what Engels would call metaphysical, right? And this is what I was just talking about, my area of specialization in Marxism. It's the dialectics of abstract and concrete. What they do in order to find out the essential content of what something is, right? What they'll do is begin abstracting characteristics of this thing, right? And they'll compare it to abstract characteristics of other things. And if they say one of these characteristics is a reactionary one, which mostly they mean cultural values, which we consider conservative, right? Like being oriented around your family, being religious, that kind of thing. Now, they'll start comparing these characteristics to each other, right? This is how sort of Marx criticizes Feuerbach for being his most abstract, because all he's doing is counting these characteristics and divorcing them from the thing in reality that they're actually attached to. And Marx teaches us right in Capital, while he's sort of showing us his system, that instead, if we want to genuinely understand these two things, we must compare them to themselves, right? We must understand the when we make our abstraction, we have to whittle it down to its most general, the one part of this thing that drives its internal development forward, right? The cause that becomes effect that becomes cause within this thing. And so when we're doing this and we're talking about the people, right? This gives us a different, deeper view of where they're at. And you can begin to see how Mao is using the level of their political consciousness as part of a sort of map of how they're developing. And what Mao suggests we do is go to them at that level and then help continue that development if we can, right? And continue developing ourselves, because when we enter into that relation, they're leading us at the same time as we're leading them. And this relationship, this is what creates the potential for revolution, rather than, what the leftists would say, that they're all, the irredeemable deplorables. There's no internal motion to them whatsoever. They are static, evil, and we must fight against them, right? I know that's a rambly answer, but I think it's a really detailed and really intuitive question. So I wanted to explain at length.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and that's kind of exactly the type of thing I was looking for.
Awesome.
I don't want to take up more of your time. I know there's other callers, but thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, brother. It was great. Feel free to call back anytime. Those were great questions.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to thank David, our man David, for the $10 super sticker. Thank you so much, brother. David is a longtime member of this institute. Without David, we would not have the awesome, awesome hats that he made for us that are still at Eddie's house. And he keeps forgetting to bring to me and Carlos every time he sees us. Sorry, little upset. I'm not upset with Eddie. But Eddie, I want that hat, brother. Come on. Also, speaking of hats, by the way, I forget what chapter they were in, but Carlito made this awesome hat for me. And I was telling him about this. I just wanted a hat that said Stalinist, right? Boom, just say it out loud, right? Just say it all the way. Stalinist. And he made this hat because they're doing an embroidery business, right? And he sent it to the convention with his chapter, but it never got to me. So if you're the one with the Stalinist hat, congratulations. You have the coolest hat ever. I'm very jealous of your hat. Popers with another 5 Midwestern Marks memberships. Popers, it was great meeting you at the convention, brother. And somebody snatch these memberships up because they will go quickly. I saw a question from X that I wanted to get to. Katya's Compass asked us, how will the ACP destroy censorship in the USA? That is a big old question, but it's a great one. It's obviously a thing that includes multiple layers, right? But a big part of this is going to be destroying the Silicon Valley tech monopolies, right? And if you go to acp.us/program, you can find out pretty much how we plan to do these kind of things. Great question. And also the program is going to teach you a lot more about the party that I think if you're focused on fighting censorship, I already like where your mind's at. So I think you're really going to like the program. I think that's going to do it for us for calls for the night. Unless you got another one, Daniel. I know I told you to hold off on them.
Yeah, we've got a couple actually.
Oh, awesome. Let's do it. Do it up. Let's keep rolling along.
Let's rock and roll. Hey, Philippe, how are you?
Hey, all good.
Philippe, what's up, brother? What do you got for us tonight?
I have a question. First of all, greetings from Greece and well done for your first convection.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, brother.
I think it's important to have a party who doesn't support the Democratic Party.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. The
whatever
Democrats
the
are mass
disagreements are,
murdering
etc.
maniacs. I'm sorry, I talked over you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I said whatever the disagreements are with your party, we can all agree that it's important to have a party that doesn't support the Democrats. So I have checked up on your constitution, and I would like to express some concerns about the part of your constitution that refers to the creation of the enterprises
Mm.
by the local chapters of the party. I
Okay,
have two
let me
concerns.
interrupt
The
you real
first,
quick before that though. What
yes,
I'm hoping that at some point, my presentation from the convention will be published. Well, actually, in our not the first edition of Red America, our theoretical journal, but the second one. All of the speeches and presentations and reports from the executive board are going to be published. Regarding our chapter and party enterprises, I would highly recommend reading my presentation because it revolves around those. And so what I was doing was making very clear to our comrades that form and content are very important ideas within Marxism. And when they're beginning to build these enterprises, we need to think not just of the content, right? We're not just trying to become bourgeois. We need to think of the form. They can't just be, enterprises run by communists. They must be communist enterprises. And we have a slogan that sort of symbolizes the way we think of these. And it's build your party, build your business, right? Because the way these operate is going to affect the way the party functions. And the way the party functions also affects the way these businesses operate. So I wanted to give you that bit of detail that obviously isn't in the program before you went on with your question. But go ahead.
okay. The first and most important concern is that maybe through the enterprise, the state could gain access to some personal data of local chapter members, since they would be part of the enterprise too, and also to the personal data of party supporters who are going to have dealings with the enterprise.
Mm.
And I think in general it is easy to understand. This is something particularly negative if it would happen, as it compromises in general the privacy of communists and the working people who support them. And especially now in times of sharpening class struggle, we can say that something like this is bound to be used by the state, the system, as a weapon against you.
Oh yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think you're right to be
This is the
concerned.
first concern and the most important, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right to be concerned about such things. I mean, especially with the history in America, right? Of McCarthyism, of the Red Scares, right? Of them hunting us down and arresting us. But here's our thing. The ruling class already knows exactly who all of us are. They have our information already. The surveillance state in America is so far past what they publicize. Literally, the modem or DSL, whatever it's called, that gets me on the internet in my house right now can give them a 3D image of where I am in my house, what I'm doing, etc., whenever they want. The way we look at it is when they come for us, they're going to come for us. What we do is we operate above all reproach. We are all law-abiding citizens. Yes, we've already faced repression. Yes, the state already harasses our leaders and our members. We've had, members get stopped on the way to across the border. We've had our leaders get their technology stolen by the state, by the FBI. So the way we see it, it's a concern that we try our best to do everything within the letter of the law possible to avoid. We don't expose people unnecessarily to risk, but people know what they're getting into being a communist in the United States of America. It's not for the faint of heart. It's for soldiers. It's for people dedicated to the freedom of the working class and they understand what comes with that. I didn't know that we had more calls lined up after you, so I hope that's a good enough answer for you, brother.
Yes, but I think this for the leaders of the party, you are right. This has you have been already exposed, but I think the aim of the party should be for ordinary people, for everyday working people to be a part of the party or
Mm.
members of the party.
Oh,
So
so what you're talking about is like
I think these
we're not
people
okay.
should
I think it's
be
just a
protected.
misunderstanding, brother. That's all. We're not a mass party. We are not open for just anyone. We mean to be a rather exclusive party where we take the best of the best. So like don't get me wrong, we want supporters, obviously, but when someone actually joins the party, they need to be ready to dedicate their entire life to being a communist, and that's not for everybody, and we understand that, and we're cool with that, right? But there's a million ways to get involved, and I would, without like going into details because of operational security, I would like to say that these are things we always consider and take it into consideration as things concretize and get done. That we never, ever, ever put anyone unnecessarily at any risk.
Okay. If you have no problem, I'm gonna give you an example for extra thought. For example,
yeah, quickly.
it's a short one. The party here in my country, in general, has many sources of income, the donations from the people and stuff like this. And because it does not work as a business, it does not give any information, for example, of the donors to the state.
Oh,
And
yeah, I know what you're
so
talking
it protects
So-
not only the members of the party, but the supporters of the party. And because, of
There's-
course, this annoys the
I know
state,
exactly what you're
the
talking
party
about.
gets
Yeah.
fined every
Okay.
year. And
I'm really sorry to cut you off. I hate being rude and interrupting. We're just short on time, and we have one other call after
Okay.
this. So, the way the law works in America is probably a little different from Greece. We personally, as a party, need to be able to see every donation from outside the party to the party, but we do not need to publish that. As long as we have it for our accounts, as in case the IRS audits us, we're good. So I'm glad I could assuage that fear if that was a fear. And I hate to cut it short, but we got to get to one other person, and we're real short on
Okay.
time. So thank you so much for your call.
I understand.
I like challenging questions like that. So anytime you want to call,
Okay.
please feel free. Daniel,
Thank you. Keep the good.
who do we have next, brother?
Hey, we've got Chen from
My man,
RTSG.
Chen.
Yo, what's
Chen,
up, bro?
our resident expert on everything China is doing. What's up, brother? Great to have you on the show finally.
I'm doing good, man. How about you, bro? How are you?
I'm great. I'm great tonight. Chen and I spoke a little bit this morning that he wanted to call and talk a little bit about China. If you guys are unfamiliar with Chen, he's a member of the RTSG research team. I suggest you follow him on Twitter immediately because he does amazing threads updating people on Chinese communism and their accomplishments, what's going on there, that kind of stuff. You will not regret it if you follow Chen. What's your Twitter for them, Chen?
Oh, it's just at Chen Kojira, but Kojira with a K. So the same as my Discord username.
Boom. There you go, guys. At Chen Kojira. All right. What do you got for us tonight, brother?
Well, I just kind of like wanted to talk about how a lot of libertarians have this kind of like weird misconception about reform and opening up. That's what I really want to talk about,
Yes, they
especially
do.
in light of the Praxman debate.
Yeah, was it? I remember he said something like, "Oh yeah, like the typical response is like China failed with Mao, and then when they started doing capitalism, that's when they started succeeding, which is completely untrue. But go ahead. The floor is yours. I'd love to hear your take on it.
Well, yeah, because I've like spent my time like going back and forth between a couple of libertarians like on Discord or other like platforms like Twitter.
Mhm.
And I found that a lot of their understandings of China fundamentally comes from a like entirely warped misconception of how reform and opening started. Firstly, they mischaracterize Deng Xiaoping, and they see him as a sort of liberal reformer who would like press the capitalism button and then
Mhm.
everything was magically solved, when this cannot be further from the truth. If you read Deng Xiaoping's selected works, especially towards the later ends of his life, especially in his third selected volume, he goes on to say and mention that there is an increasing issue within China towards attitudes of bourgeois liberalization and towards attitudes of quote unquote embracing capitalism, right? And he says that this should be eliminated completely. And ultimately, in 1999, this culminating with the Sixth Form movement, or its official name in the Chinese state media, the political turmoil of the spring and summer of 1989.
Mhm.
If Deng Xiaoping really was a Gorbachev-like figure who really wanted to restore capitalism, why would he crack down on these movements? Why would he kick out George Soros's funded NGOs? Why would he crack down on any defunded so-called liberal reformists in the country? Why would he purge them from the party? That doesn't add up, right? And then, of course, they'll try and say, oh, well, even though Deng Xiaoping wasn't an ideological capitalist, he used the market mechanisms to bring about capitalism. But here's the thing, though. The vast majority of economic growth during the reform and opening up period can be charted to the township and village enterprises, as well as the various urban cooperatives that sprung up like mushrooms after rain after Deng Xiaoping started reform and opening up.
Mhm.
Private enterprises did not become legal around until 1986 or 1988. And the private enterprises that were quote unquote informally legal prior to that were capped at having a maximum employeeship of roughly 7 to 8 members. So clearly not large scale private firms in the conventional sense.
And
And even these cooperatives,
let me
right?
interrupt real quick, Chad. Even
Yeah,
the
yeah, sure, sure.
even the foreign investment was extremely limited. I don't have numbers on it in front of me, but they act as if like you're right, like they treat him like Gorbachev, right? Like he just opened the door for all of this to come in, but it was so much closer to Lenin, and not really. I hate using it's just an extended NEP era. It's not like that at all.
Yeah, yeah, I
But
know
it's
what
a
you mean.
lot closer to just the Lenin's notion to get bourgeois experts, right? What they were doing was creating a special sector that was not primary and not the focus of the economy at all. So keep going, keep going. I'm loving all this.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And of course, these township and village enterprises actually came from the collective communes
Mm-hmm.
of the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution that were transitioned
And,
towards a more cooperative form, a more
and
market-oriented form per se, but the essence of a communal village-wide enterprise where all the villagers were employees of this one village-wide unit still remained.
and people wonder why we are talking about our chapter enterprises, right? Where do you think we got this idea from? But go on, man. I'm having fun listening.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And back to the point about foreign investments, is that funnily enough, the character and nature of these foreign investments were not remotely the same as in China relative to other developing East Asian countries during the
Mm-hmm.
same time. The reason why China was able to avoid the effects of the Asian financial crisis, a huge amount had to go due to the fact that foreign investment did not leave the country because foreign investment did not take the form of equities or stock shares like in Japan or South Korea or Thailand or Malaysia. Foreign investment at the time remained squarely on factories, fixed assets on the ground. So these foreign investors couldn't exactly pick up a factory and then run away with it, right?
Right. And they
And secondly,
they couldn't let debt leverage them, they couldn't do anything like that.
yeah, precisely,
They weren't
precisely.
they weren't going to allow their economy to be financialized, by the way, either, which is really, really important to understand nowadays.
Exactly. And I mean, even and this ironically happened during China's quote unquote most liberal era under Jiang Zemin and Vice Premier Zhu Rongzhi, right? But even
let me
then,
let me
these
let me interrupt
so-called
you real
liberal
quick. I'm sorry,
technocrats.
Chen.
Yeah, no worries, no worries, no worries.
It grinds my gears so much when people talk about like Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao as if they were these liberals, right? When they definitely were not. Now, don't get me wrong, like the Xi era, there is something to this sort of returning to their roots kind of thing. There was a lot of ideological exploration during the 90s. But to say these were like liberal reformers is to be completely unfamiliar with any of their policies or anything they ever said. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. That like it
Yeah,
just bothers me, you know?
yeah, I got you 100%. But even then, right? Zhu Rongzhi and Jiang Zemin, during the Asian financial crisis, there was a quote unquote pocket of capitalism in China. That pocket itself being Hong Kong. Hong Kong, being a former British colony, was organized and still is to this day organized along the rules of capitalism according to the one country and two systems law proposed by Deng Xiaoping.
Mhm.
And of course, since George Soros and other American uh, financial elite wanted to, speculate in their economies, crash their markets, get a huge sum of cash, make a ton of money. The only reason why George Soros failed in Hong Kong while he succeeded in Tokyo, in Seoul, in Bangkok, in Kuala Lumpur, and all these other Asian countries is because Zhu Rongzhi and the Communist Party of China, quote unquote, distorted market laws to prop up and support the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, leading George Soros to lose $2 billion in his attempt to try and crash the Hong Kong stock market. Even during, I think, like a IMF or World Trade Organization meeting, Zhu Rongzhi actually came up to George Soros and said, "Your attempt to crash the Hong Kong market will fail." And it did fail, precisely because of this so-called large state intervention and state planning.
Yo,
If,
that is some straight up like gangster shit right there. Like,
yeah,
yo,
exactly.
Soros, your shit's about to fail. Like, that's awesome. Like, the Chinese are so cool like that, man. I'm sorry. We're like right at the end of the show, but let's wrap it up and bring it all together. I'm here for it, brother.
Yeah, sure. And it's just like what Crackston fundamentally misunderstands is that if China was the so-called capitalist liberal paradise where capitalism represents everything good about Chinese economic development and socialism represents everything bad, then how is he able to hand wave away China's ability to ward off the Asian financial crisis? They refute deliberately in this case, they were using the state hand, not the invisible hand, to rectify and fix the problem. While many other countries, South Korea, Japan, Kuala Lumpur, Thailand included, have liberalized along capitalist lines and have retracted the scale of government investment into the economy, retracted state ownership, dismantled the state banks, scaled down the national planning bureaus. It is only China, the only nation to have refused to do that, refused
Oh, you cut out, Chen.
to scale down. Oh, apologies. I just like wanted to like clarify that
Yeah, no,
if
go ahead.
Praxben one, yeah, it's just that like how can Praxben really make this erroneous claim that everything good in China has to do with the invisible hand or capitalism, and everything bad in China has to do with the visible hand, like which is socialism. He isn't able to succinctly explain why China's success, able to ward off the Asian financial crisis relative to other quote unquote more capitalist nations. He isn't
Yeah,
able to explain that along his own like line of logic, which I think is it's
honestly,
just ridiculous that his like claim.
honestly, I'm gonna be real. I think it's because this kid ain't very smart. Like, look, I'm not like a guy that goes, "Oh, they're libertarians are stupid." Farthest thing from me. Almost everybody I work with has, said they're a libertarian to me. I understand libertarian thinking. I respect it. But in the 21st century, what passes as libertarian is like a smaller version of what they did to Marxism in the West, right? It's just watered down, made plastic, and turned into hollow dogmas. Literally, this kid just thinks market good, government bad. He can't understand context. He can't understand unity. And when he gets destroyed by people who understand what they're talking about, Like, I mean, Haas brutally just tore all of the little pieces off of him, right? He's been throwing a temper tantrum since then, right? So I think a lot of it has to do with his ability to understand things, his level of sort of general intelligence. And when you add to that the dogmas that you pick up in this watered down plastic version of libertarianism, he just like he operates from this conclusion. Well, market was there, so we must work from this conclusion and try to find a reason it's correct. And that's all he will ever be able to do. That it's pathetic, really. I feel bad for the kid.
Yeah, I just feel like it's a bit of Dunning-Kruger syndrome, honestly.
100%. And like you right here, like actually like bringing the entire context to the conversation, I think would go completely over his head. I don't think he would understand any of that. He would just go, no, you don't understand. They had a market here, so it was good. They had a government there, so it was bad. And that's all he'll ever be, brother. It was, yeah, Jenny Lynn just said it. It was painful. It was very painful. And you can even tell, like, think about it. An intelligent person, someone who just understands the material, the source material, the content of what they're talking about, wouldn't realize they're losing a debate like that and then blip out like he did and start insulting women, right? It's wild that kid made it out of there unscathed after doing that. He would not have if the situation were a little different. All right, well, you know what? That's about it for the night. Chen, I want to thank you specifically for calling in, and you are welcome to call anytime you want, brother. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you to everybody else that we spoke to tonight. All the callers, all the questions, all the super chatters, all the chatters, all the everybody. And thank you to Daniel, as always. We're going to go out the same way we always do. But tonight's show, and Chen in particular, were
based.
Have a great night, everybody.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken, now they must give. And end the vanity of nations, we've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the the final drama in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The international unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time.